When I wrote my story, Rhythm, which is on Film Fiction, it was originally conceived as a rant about how fan fiction writers often get the meter wrong when reading lines of Zecora's distinct poetic dialogue. And so when I wrote her epic saga of coming to the Everfree, I made certain to do it correctly. A few people have criticized me, saying that I failed in places to do so. They are wrong about this. I am going to recite the poem as it should be read. There are two things which must be done to capture Zecora's voice. One is that the lines must be written so that proper metering is possible. Two, the reader must find within these lines the proper rhythms. If the lines are written to allow for the proper metering, then it is the fault of the reader if they do not sound proper. Here is the way I intended them to be read. In the days of my youth, in a land far away, I had stood on a beach and looked out at the bay, upon ships of the merchants who back then did trade, and I thought that with them could my fortune be made. I had no dreams of riches or fortunes of gold, but I did think myself, with my nature so bold, might then seek out a place in a world not yet seen, where the magics I sensed had to be would be keen. So I rode with those stallions, besotted with treasure. At each port that we visited, hard did I measure the magical might of the air that I breathed, and the further I went, my hunger, it seethed. But just when I thought that my dream might fall dead, I got wind of a place toward which I was led, a magical wood, of which I'd often dreamed, but which now loomed before me, and real so it seemed. So I strode in quite boldly and entered my prize, with visions of magical gems in my eyes. Only then did I stop and look quickly around, and what I saw then all began to astound. There were horrors and haunts of impossible measure, not exactly the best sort of thing for my pleasure. I began to see quickly that path of despair that might just lay before me, if I should stay there. But I wanted the magic that ever so strong lay at once in my grasp if I did tarry long. So then I resolved that this place would be home, after spending long years in my magical roam. But I needed a way to survive what was shown, to stay and to grow, make this forest my own. I wanted it all, what this forest had shown me. I had to own it so that it would not own me. I had at my disposal the numerous things, the potions, elixirs, and magical rings, which I brought aboard all of the ships which had sailed me, so far from my home, of my future availed me. Strong were these magics I'd brought from my home, and I'd learned everything from each grimoire and tome, which I'd read on my magical voyage at sea, and which now I would use well and good to serve me. So I set myself up in this magical cottage, and I lit up a fire with no smoke, but great wattage, to set bubbling a great and quite magical brew, and into that pot all my potions did stew. I knew I had power enough to make good on my claim to a magical home in the wood, but there was yet a thread of which I had no pluck, so it seemed I had stopped at my goal, and was stuck. The evils without I felt grow and come near. I knew soon they would knock on my door and be here. I had felt for some time that another thing lurked, a rhyme or a tune that had kept my ears perked. So I cast aside fear and went into a trance, an odd sort of thing with an upside-down stance. As I chanted my mantra and peered at the dark, I began to see then I had brightened a spark. Some thin thread of wisdom to me did appear. Of the beasts and the terrors I now had no fear. It had been my slow mantra which showed me the way, and it is that same rhythm which I use today. When combined right with bindings and potions of herbs, rhythm now keeps me safely with these nouns and verbs. It is as she has said, my remarkable friend, that the rewards of friendship exist without end. You have taught me so much through the life that you live, and there is a great depth to the knowledge you give. And that was it, basically. That's the poem, and that's how I think it should be read. Thank you.